Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Deconversion Stories. As you can probably tell, I have lost a little bit of my voice. I had a bit of a head cold over the weekend, so Saturday night I seemed to be fine, and then late Saturday night it started sinking in, and I was all stuffy and achy yesterday and the day before, so I finally got back to work today. But the voice is coming back slowly but surely, so it won't be as loud and sexy voiced as I usually am. Sorry about that there, guys. But anyways, today I have my very special guest, Ragabash Dabbler, who is with us.
Hey, everybody.
You might recognize him. He was in one of the after parties with Jonathan, who was on the show a little while back, and said he enjoyed it and said he was interested in coming on and telling his story as well. So we'll get into, in a couple of minutes here, we'll get into the whole nitty gritty of the story of how you found your way out of beliefs. And that's basically what I do here with people anyways. But a couple of announcements I'm going to make first before we get going. Don't forget, guys, Randolph and I are starting up our own call-in show called True North Talk. So head on over to that channel on YouTube there. If somebody could throw the link in the chat there, that'd be great. If it's not there and somebody can't do it there, then there is a link below in the description, as well as my guest has a couple of links as well in the description below. One where you can stalk him, follow him on Twitter, and and you can check out his content on YouTube, and I highly recommend that you do. And you see this great little background I got there. That's kind of the color scheme for the whole thing. And like we were talking about a little bit before we went live, kind of pops out at you, the greens and the oranges and the bright yellows. It's like the 80s are back, man. All the neon shit's coming back. But anyways, Rags, what I do is I talk to people about their deconversion stories and other things too. So why don't you kind of take us back to when you were in the belief field of whatever type it was and how you slowly found your way out of that, or quickly?
Yeah. Okay. So I was born in South Mississippi in a little town called Brookhaven. My mom.
Cool.
Yeah, Brookhaven, Mississippi. I am oil field trash. But no, so growing up, we were very, very conservative. My dad grew up Catholic, but as with a lot of Catholics, he wasn't really a practicing Catholic. However, my mom was very Southern Baptist. Like my grandfather was a deacon in the church. My mom and my grandmother alternated playing piano and organ. Like we were there every time the doors were open, and a lot of times when they weren't.
Reminds me of a joke, by the way.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure if you know what's better than a rose on a piano.
Oh, what?
Tulips on an organ.
I like that one. Oh, and so did we got a coin on that one. That's good.
Oh yeah, we got a coin there. So yeah, I better hit the banner because Mikey isn't here. He's slacking. There we go. Coins. When you see that hashtag coins thing fly by, take a drink, folks, because that's what it's all about. And I'm pretty much almost empty on this sucker, but that's okay. I got a fucking cooler full of them. So
I like a man who comes prepared. That's good.
Only when there's beer involved, really. But
right.
Anyway.
And see, I should have done like you. I should have blacked out the label. We are not sponsored by Yingling, but Yingling, if you're out there and you're watching, I'm fully in favor of accepting a sponsorship from you. So
there you go, Yingling.
Let me know. You can find my information down below. But yeah. So real Southern Baptist. And so, but I was always the kid that like asked way too many questions. When you grow up being like in that kind of conservative background, they really just want you to accept what you're told and not really think past it. So even when I was really little, I'm familiar with Jonathan, I guess.
I think I've known that guy. We're getting down to the nitty gritty here, folks.
Yeah. But yeah, so like I would always ask questions. Like I got in trouble at one point because we were headed home from church, and I was little. I was like 5 or 6, and somehow like we had gotten onto the topic of people who weren't Christian, and I heard about like the idea of reincarnation for the first time, and so I started asking questions about it. Oh yes, Christian is Christian's my child. Jonathan and I are trying to raise him the best we know how.
We're doing a great job because he's a good people.
Yeah, we're doing what we can. But yeah, so I remember distinctly getting in trouble because my cousin overheard me through the truck window postulating like how I could take reincarnation and make it into a Christian idea.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, I was basically in my little 5, 6 year old mind, I was like, it kind of makes sense though, because you have all these people and they're all named different things, and we become angels when we go to heaven. So maybe, like, since God created Earth as a paradise for us, you go to heaven, and then when a baby's born, that angel comes back down, and you get to come back to God's paradise. And that was
Sure.
apparently heretical and blasphemous. And I got quite the ass whooping on that
You're
one.
out.
Yeah.
And if this is paradise, I want my money back.
Right. Yeah, I mean, some faulty logic, but you gotta be forgiving to a kindergartner, I guess.
I
But
Either
yeah,
that, or it's a lot of work burying them in the backyard. So yeah.
yeah. You're just not trying hard enough.
Well, I do have a little bobcat backhoe, so well,
There
I
you
don't,
go.
but a friend of mine does.
There you
They
go.
work like a charm.
Work smarter.
Yeah.
But yeah, so after I like got a few ass whoopings, I realized it's probably better to just keep my mouth shut, and to what all those little machinations that were happening in my head, for me to just figure them out for myself and not tell anybody about them. So that worked out pretty well for me. So we moved around a lot when I was a kid. We moved to Tennessee, and then back to Mississippi, and then back to Tennessee, and all around. But so the only constant in my life was going to church.
Okay.
And it kind of didn't matter where we went, like after the first time we moved. So we went from Baptist to Methodist to Episcopal, back to Baptist, back to Methodist, and just as long as we were there. And in the immortal words of Dolly Parton, God doesn't care which church you go to as long as you show up. That was kind of what we were operating with.
But wait a second. Don't they all argue that they're on the right path and the other guys aren't?
Yeah, and again, being the kid that asked a lot of questions, I would be sitting in a service and wondering why I was being told something that directly contradicted something I'd been told a month ago.
Right.
But like I said, you learn to keep it quiet. So that was a lot of it. Like my dad's favorite saying was, "Women and children are meant to be seen and not heard." So I just kind of took that to heart and went with it for a little while. But yeah. Oh.
You gotta get that there going there. Cheers.
Yep. Cheers. So yeah, so that was a lot of my childhood, was just floating around to different churches. When we eventually kind of settled in Tennessee, where I went to church was largely dictated by my friends. So it was just all different flavors of Southern Baptist, just 4 or 5 different churches, but they were all pretty much Baptist.
I like the chocolate ones the best myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, those are pretty good.
I don't know where that came from.
So, but as I grew up, I kind of kept, like, I would hear something that contradicted the Bible, or contradicted something I'd been taught in Sunday school, or something I'd been taught in RAs, or something like that. And so I would try to come up with an explanation for it that still made sense. So by the time I was like in high school, I was probably a lot more of an atheist than I realized, because I realized that, like, none of the pictures that had been painted for me of a God, like, really squared with the world. So
Right.
I would just kind of keep, like, diving into things and going, well, I believe in the timeline that the Bible laid out, but I also believe that there is evidence for evolution. But that makes sense, because if God made a creation in his image and then made the world to change, then he'd want his creation to be able to change with the world. So, maybe he created certain things for us so that we no, this is different beer. This is not your beer.
Settle down, Jonathan.
Settle down. It's okay. He's real excited to see me. But yeah, so that was kind of the long and short of it. Like, when I was in high school, I did a genealogy of the Bible, because I, for some reason, thought that no one had ever thought to do that before, to actually see how old the Earth was.
Right.
So I started in Genesis and did a full on paper genealogy of the Bible. And then realized that, like, that didn't make sense. And that's kind of where I got into, well, really the Bible is the inspired word of God, but it was written by men, and then it was translated, and then it was translated again, and I'm
And
reading it in this
again, and
dialect.
again, and
Yeah,
again.
and again and again and again. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then and I had all these people peripherally, like that you'd have like the William Lane Craigs of the world that were going,
Jeez.
well, if you have a question about this, I've got an answer that's so confusing you don't know what question to ask anymore, and it'll make you feel better.
Oh yeah, he's word salad king, that guy.
Oh, absolutely. But that was really comforting to a kid that wanted to be super smart. You know what I mean? Just all I wanted was to make sure that I had the right answers. So like that bought me some time. But really, the first time that I kind of consciously questioned whether or not I believed in God was when I was 20. I was living in Boston, and there was no like final betrayal or like street corner philosopher that made me question things. I
So
just
like no Anthony Magnabosco type thing.
Right, yeah, like street epistemology didn't exist.
Okay.
No, but there was nothing like that. I was out on my own, largely on my own for the first time outside of like a semester of college and that sort of thing. And I remember being in my apartment and just feeling this sort of utter absence of God. And I'd always been taught to like talk to God like he was my best friend. And so I was talking and I wasn't getting anything back, like no feeling of comfort, nothing like that. My dog is trying to get in on the action here.
Jack Russell?
Yep, he's a Jack Russell.
Oh, you know that they're rated one of the smartest dogs in the world, right?
Yeah, he's super intelligent. He knows, like, he can spot the soft targets when he's looking for somebody to give him food and that kind of thing. He knows where to go.
Well, the time to worry is when he finally figures out your credit card number and all these like rawhide dog bones start coming in from Amazon. You're like, oh, wait a minute, I didn't order that.
That explains why I'm so broke now that I think about it. But yeah, so I kind of had a nervous breakdown, and totally lost my shit. Like I was in the middle of my apartment, freaking out, crying, just begging God to be real, and
Right.
then basically cried
Aw.
myself to sleep that night. And the next day woke up and was like, okay, this is a test, so that just means I need to be stronger in my faith. And then that kind of floated me along for the next 10 years. So a lot more of that re-racking God to fit new things that I figured out about the world and that kind of thing. And then
Yeah, no, I just kind of
gotcha. But yeah,
beer burp,
understandable. So yeah, after that, I did a lot of soul searching, a lot of research into like what other people believed and why they believed it and how we could all be telling the same story and that sort of thing. And like at one point I taught Native American language and culture
cool.
for a job that I was working. Yeah, I taught Shawnee language and culture relative to the time frame of like the War of 1812. And
Right
so
on.
so I got to stay on the reservation for a little while and work with some of their historians. And I learned
Dude,
a
that's
lot.
awesome.
Yeah, it was super fun. And I learned a lot about like Shawnee mysticism and that sort of thing. And so I was like, oh, the Great Spirit. This is the thing that we're all trying to get in touch with. So then I was an annoying white dude who adopted Native American culture for my own purposes for a few years. You know what I mean? Like just anything to have some form of God concept. And then, basically, I at one point, I was suffering a really deep depression. And I was using drugs and alcohol to kind of get through it. And so I ended up in the 12-step programs. Which,
geez, like the religious ones were they? Yeah.
I mean, that's not the only kind, but that's pretty much the only kind.
Oh, there are secular versions, yes.
Yeah. There are free thinker groups and that sort of thing. But I was in the dyed in the wool 1930s style like AA and NA groups, and that was this like really hard shift back to my strict fundamentalist roots. And you have to have your own conception of God, and it was a lot of blaming yourself for things and then like taking ownership for things you had done wrong and trying to fix them and that sort of thing. But along with it, I was kind of force fed a bunch of religious doctrine that I didn't really believe or appreciate. Yeah. But, one of the benefits of that was it did put me in a position to get actual mental health care, to talk to a qualified counselor who could kind of walk me through those things and explain, here's what's going on in your brain, and here's the 90 years of science that these people aren't teaching you about things like alcohol use disorder and, when these self-soothing habits and that sort of thing. So I kind of came out of that, and then I was kind of at a loss because I was no longer, when you enter those really strict programs, you're kind of taught to exclude everyone else in your life. If there is somebody in your life who has reservations about you being in one of those programs, or the way that they're teaching you to think, or they have any form of question about your concept of God or anything like that, you're basically taught to kind of put up a wall and protect yourself from it. And so as I started to pull myself out of those groups, and I didn't really have any other social structure around me, it left me vulnerable in a way that I kind of needed to be, which was, it opened me up to being able to kind of think for myself again, to sort of decide what I believed about the world. And that's when I really started diving headfirst into sort of the online secular community, because I had questions, and I kind of thought it would be fun to argue my points, right? If I really believe this, then no matter what they say, it's going to hold up to scrutiny, and I will be able to talk my way out of this and think my way out of this. And so, I'd watch things like the Atheist Experience, or, listen to the Thinking Atheist, or, I found your show about that time, like all of these different places around the internet. I started finding these resources of people who had doubts, or people who were accepting, conversations from people in the religious communities and talking them through why they didn't agree with them.
Yep. There we go.
So, I spent, a year or two arguing with people that I didn't know. Like I would watch a debate, like I'd watch like Sam Harris and William Lane Craig or whoever it was debate something, and like actively pausing the video to argue what I thought the point should have been and why I thought that they misrepresented it, and then listening to the call-in shows and pausing the video and yelling back at Matt Dillahunty and all of that stuff.
Hear that, Matt? He's yelling at you.
How dare you, Matt? But really, the kind of the straw that really did end up breaking the camel's back for me was I was watching, was probably Atheist Experience or something with the ACA, and Aaron Ra was on Taking a Caller, and he started talking to the person about something, and he was kind of doing that thing where he was talking to the caller, but really he was talking to the audience. Like he was sort of making the case for people who had never heard the case made before. And he got really soft, and he's got like that like baritone quality to his voice, and you know what I mean? Like it is sort of entrancing. And I remember pausing the video and being like, the devil's trying to get me. And then I remember stopping in that moment and being like,
well, Aaron is the devil, right? So.
Oh my God, he's like a freaking Disney villain. Yeah. But I was like, why, where did this thought come from? Why do I think that?
Because X is in the chat, so I just wanted to.
There you go.
Flash and shill the show. Utah Outcasts, folks.
Utah Outcasts.
I'm a common guest on that show, so
that's awesome. Well, I know something I'm gonna have to make a note to subscribe to later.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm always looking for resources, by the way. Drop your stuff in the chat. I'll go back and look at it later, because I'm always looking for people to talk to or people to listen to.
There you go, guys.
But yeah, so Aaron's sitting there and he's talking, and it looks like he's looking directly at me talking, and it scared the crap out of me. I paused the video. I was like, this is the devil talking to me. And I had that moment of, says who? And I thought about it, and I was like, am I just scared? Like, is this just this thing that I felt 10 years ago that's like still eating away at me that I can't get rid of?
Right.
And so I kind of sat with it for a little while, and I was like, I don't think I believe in God. I think I'm just trying to explain him into existence. And so I kind of sat with it for a little while, and then I went and I got in my car and I went for a drive. And I remember like having that moment of, I'm going to say this out loud. And if I say this out loud and I don't like have a heart attack and lightning doesn't strike the car, then maybe I'm okay. And like as quietly as I could say it while actually still voicing it, I remember going, I'm an atheist. And I kind of looked around the car and nothing happened. And I was like, oh shit, I'm an atheist. And then from there I started doing more research, but kind of like looking inside and going, okay, now that I'm listening to these people honestly, like now that I know this about myself, what does this mean? How am I listening to people? Like what am I getting here? And it wasn't too much longer after that I started looking for resources. Like I ended up calling RFR, Recovering from Religion. I ended up calling their helpline at one point and talking to them.
Good idea. They're great
Yeah,
people.
yeah. And it was more about, I'm super isolated, and normally I would pray in this circumstance and that doesn't work for me. And, you know, how does an atheist get through hard times? And like, what, how do I form a community here, and that sort of thing. And that's sort of when I started doing a YouTube channel. Actually started it because I was sitting at home one night and I had just gotten off the phone with them. And I walked over to my computer and I opened up a Google Doc and I just typed "an atheist talks to God." And I left it until the next morning. And then the next morning I came and typed out the script for what ended up being my first video. And then I filmed it and waited 2 weeks and didn't edit it and couldn't look at it. And then I put together like a rough cut to have people look at. And a friend of mine was like, just post it. Like 5 people are going to see it. Like, why are you so scared? Like, what is holding you back from this? And I was like, okay, I'll do it. And I posted it. And then amazingly, the world did not crumble. And, I was able to go on about my regular life, and everything was fine. And that sort of brings us up to now. Like, that really wasn't that long ago. That was just a few months ago. So it was definitely like a slow burn atheism of just little bit by little bit letting those defenses fall. But man, like looking back at it, you go, oh wow, I was super indoctrinated. Like, ooh, buddy, like there was a lot of learned behavior there. And that's one reason I want to be public and open with people about it, because I want people to see somebody that's like not that far out of it, that has that's welcoming and can still relate to them in terms of what it feels like to be in that space, because it's still pretty fresh.
I got a phone call from our plumber.
Was he hitting question mark boxes and opening up coins?
No. He just give me a call back, because apparently he's got the parts for the washer. So,
oh, good.
Our dishwasher.
It's all good news.
Yeah. But of course, when he called in, as you heard the Spider-Man theme song kick in there, that's it's my ringtone, the original one. And I just slided it because I'm like, I don't recognize that number, so I just slided it away. But that's all right. So apparently it's the plumber. I'll call him back after, in between the shows or whatever.
Cool.
Yeah. So sorry for my distraction there.
No, that's okay. But yeah, so that's basically been the last few years, is just slowly admitting it to myself and then opening myself up to other people who are out there who might need somebody to talk to, or might need to hear somebody else who's like in that same mental space of like, this is still fresh. And sometimes, that indoctrination kicks back in and I get kind of worried and I have to talk to myself about it for a second and do self-care. And,
Sure.
I think that's important for people. Like, I love the people who have been out there for years and years and years. But I know for me, I needed to hear all kinds of voices about it. Like, I needed to hear people sort of repeat my own story back to me.
Right. Did you hear any? Well, you probably did, but I'm sure you heard similarities with some of the stories that were told to me over the past couple of years, anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's when like there are some people that are kind of easy to pull, like Seth Andrews. Like anytime I hear him talk, I'm like, oh yeah, totally. But even last night I was listening to today while I was cleaning my house, I was listening to your stream from a couple of days ago, and John Anthony, is that what his name was? Yeah. Even like bits and pieces of his story, because we're both from the South and we both kind of have that, certain pieces of that upbringing of like, these people's sins must be terrible for them, but that's their cross to carry, and like that's not mine, and we all have our own things, and sort of like that almost desensitizing, distancing language that you're taught. Just about everybody who's ever been on the show, you there's something, there's something there that we can all relate to.
Yeah, absolutely. Mikey had a good question too. He directed. Mikey's my producer, by the way. He's in backstage, so he'll be joining us for the after party. But every time the coin thing goes off, he'll hit the coin button now. I had to do it because he was slacking off so
God, Mikey.
Anyway, do you feel like religion hurt your mental health?
Okay,
I don't myself, but
yeah. So I would say that first of all, there are definitely harmful practices that I was taught as a part of my religious practice. There were harmful bits of self-denial and that sort of thing, and things that sort of lead you into shame spirals, right? Like if you're taught that it's not okay to be gay, which my sexual orientation at this point, I just say, right? Like but
you are who you are, man. And
right, exactly.
Shit about who you have relations with otherwise, anyways.
Right.
You know what I mean.
Yeah, but being 12, 13, 14, 15 years old and figuring out what like sexual orientation was and that sort of thing, and then knowing that it wasn't what you were supposed to be, and then that sort of loss of control, and like that mental burden of, oh, this is just something that I'm being tested with, that I have to live with, that like there's no correcting this, there's no better way to think about this, there's the people out there that are telling me that it's okay, they're trying to lead me astray, like those sorts of things were really damaging. It damaged my family dynamic a lot. Like my brother is very gay. He's been married to a man for 10 years and they have like 4 kids and that sort of thing, and
wow, awesome.
yeah. But like watching what he went through, like when I because I even went through that thing of like, well, I could just date women, like I can 100% just date women and just deny like half of the population, and that'll be fine.
Well, you could, but why would you?
Right. But I was like, well, that's the answer, is just don't act on the things that are sinful. But so you get into those sorts of mind frames that really are pretty destructive, and you don't realize it until later. But also, in terms of just not getting mental health care when you need it, doing things like, well, God will answer this for you, or the Lord's not going to lead you to it if he can't lead you through it. Well, you know what? A lot of people. Oh, Christian. Yes, the recent rise of DFC, which, by the way, the DFC, for those of you who don't know, is the debate forum community. We have a Discord, and we are streaming debates and creator spotlights and those sorts of things. Christian's been leading the charge on that. And yes, I cry tears of joy every single time that we put something on there, because I think we're doing a lot of great work there.
For sure.
Yeah, any chance we have to put some new voice out there, let somebody else speak in public and be heard, and let people relate to them, whether it's about religious things or about politics or about mental health or whatever else that you want to talk about. Anytime there's space for that, I'm fully in favor of it. So yes, Christian, tears of joy all the time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How did your family handle it when or have you even told them that you're an atheist?
So a lot of my family does. Like I'm not close with my dad's side of the family at all. Like, my parents split up, and my
Okay.
father was abusive, and his family sort of like took his side on things. So that got rid of a lot of that right away.
Aw.
Yeah, no, it's much healthier that
Floof
way.
cam.
Oh yeah, yeah. He knows he's a star. He can't help it. But yeah. So with the rest of my family, like my brother was real religious for a while, and then obviously being super religious and a gay dude in East Tennessee, like those two things didn't really go well together.
Like
So
oil and water.
right, he kind of stepped away from it. My mother is still religious. In fact, she's a lay Eucharistic minister with the Episcopal Church. So
Holy cow! Wow.
yeah, like she can help with communion and that sort of thing. And she does a lot of volunteer work through the church and those sorts of things. But also, being an Episcopalian is a far cry from where we started. So she's a lot more. I think she's an atheist and doesn't want to admit it. Like because when we talk about things,
For the dog.
yeah, exactly, Mikey. That's why he
So
ends up
she
in every single one
preaches,
of my videos.
and you figure she's an atheist, eh?
Right. So I think
Wouldn't
that
be the
she
first time, by the
finds.
way.
What's that?
Wouldn't be the first time that was a scenario, by the way.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is, I don't think the concept of God that she grew up with makes sense to her. I think that like when we talk about things, like she was having an argument with somebody in her office at work the other day because he was doing the whole like corona, the Bible math about how it's the number of the beast and the whole thing. And she was texting me like while they were talking, like, can you look this up? Or can you look this? And I was like, I don't need to look this stuff up. Like, let's just talk about, like, John of Patmos was talking about Nero. That's the Numero-Hebraic equivalent of 666 or 616 and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And
And now
like,
the Iron
yeah.
Maiden song is going through my head now.
But yeah, so like we've kind of come to an understanding about it where like I don't think that she believes in hell, so I think a lot of that fear has gone away for her.
Okay, cool.
And I think like she probably also has a little bit of that like once saved always saved, and like you're living a good Christian life, so whatever you profess to believe isn't as important. But I mean,
Right.
she's gotten a lot better with things, but there are definitely conversations that we don't have. But also, like, at Thanksgiving, she did not insist on everybody praying before the meal, and you know what I mean, like that sort of thing. So
Interesting.
it's,
Okay.
you know what I mean, like that we're finding common ground. It's not always been the easiest, but you know, she's a good lady.
That's very good.
Yeah.
She sounds like it. I mean, and you think she may actually be on her way out of the belief, which I think is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I don't think she'll ever fully let go of it. I think it's too much a part of her identity. You
Yeah.
know, like
Well, you
she
never know.
went to college for church activities, and she was a missionary, and you know what I mean? Like, just I think it's so much a part of her, and I think it keeps her connected to her parents, both of whom have passed away, and you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
I think if she lets go of that, there's going to be a lot of painful stuff that I don't know if
Oh
she's
yeah.
going to want to explore. But
Right.
she I hate to put it this way, but she's one of the good ones. You know what I mean? Like, she's a Christian and she loves Jesus and she wants the best for people, and like she's very much a humanist when it comes to the way she relates to the world.
That's
I
fantastic.
just think I think that Christianity is more of a security blanket than anything else.
Okay, sure. Like Linus has his
Yeah,
from the Peanuts. But
yeah.
anyways, so with that in mind, now that you've talked about all this, was it harder? So I guess it really wasn't hard for you to come out as an atheist. She probably understood and all that.
Yeah, I mean,
So
yeah, because like she was one of the people, like, again, after we were sort of away from the rest of the family and away from the like the deep roots of the church, and she was in a much more understanding church body, things became easier to talk to. Like, you know, I was able to talk to her like academically, you know, what we think about as Jesus, and then, you know, sort of explain mythicism to her without saying I'm a mythicist, you know, like those sorts of things. So it's a lot about how we couch those conversations. You know, if I turned really vindictive about it, I think she'd be a lot more worried. Like if I turn into one of the like schoolyard bully atheists, where I'm like, your Jesus is dumb, and if your God's so big, why won't he fight me? If I started doing that, I think she'd have a lot more problems with it.
Yeah, probably. I'm sure. But you know what? A lot of people do go through that angry atheist stage,
Yeah.
right? A lot of people do.
And I did go through that, but I sort of like went through it on my own in my own apartment. Like I wasn't out like screaming at cars about it. I was just, screaming at Matt Dillahunty from the comfort of my couch. Um, you know, just like, and you should tell him this too, and that sort of thing. But
He'll be
but that's
pleased
why I
to
have a
know.
YouTube channel now, because I can say it really nicely.
There you go. Exactly. And there is a link to that YouTube channel that he just mentioned down below in the description box. And so I guess, would you say it was harder to come out as an atheist or to come out as being gay?
So actually, it's probably the sexuality thing, because I was a very artistic kid. I was a professional actor from 7 to 27.
Oh,
And
wow,
so
cool.
like, yeah, I was like a song and dance man and like that kind of thing. And so like everybody assumed I was the gay one growing up. Like in every picture of us as kids, like I'm the one that's like,
Really?
and my brother's the one that's like
Jazz
frowning at the
hands.
camera. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had to do like a lot of the like manning it up and like, no, I totally like chicks. I like vaginas, like man. Meanwhile, I was a virgin until I was 20 because I was scared Jesus was going to be mad at me. So like,
Right.
it was kind of like trying to play both sides of it. Like I'm the perfect Christian, straight white cis male, like, and
Yeah.
a couple of those things are true. But it also like having a gay older brother also sort of made it more difficult, because like he came out and I kind of saw what she went through when she was still more conservative, trying to
Right.
deal
Okay.
with her firstborn son being openly homosexual, marrying a man, and like that sort of thing. And she didn't have a lot of people to talk to about it. So I got the brunt of a lot of that, like talking through her bullshit phase.
Right. Sure.
So that actually became a lot more difficult for me because that trust wasn't there. Of
Mhm.
like, I saw what this looked like behind closed doors. So what is this going to look like when I do it?
Mhm.
But also at this point, like I'm 35 fucking years old, and the world's a very different place. So it's sort of
Yep.
like being an activist, like in different spaces. I've been really politically active my whole life. And so like being somebody out there and fighting for causes and that sort of thing, there sort of presented itself natural opportunities to say, by the way, it's not a big deal, but I'm dating a dude right now. And then to like sneak that in, as opposed to like the big dramatic, like, I just want to tell you, and I hope you don't hate me. But like
Yeah.
we never had that conversation, but it's just like that. I'm trying something on here. We're gonna see if it fits.
Mhm.
And so, but again, like that was a long progression. Whereas, with the spirituality stuff, it was a lot more like, well, I kind of don't believe that God personally wrote the Bible. And she was like, okay, I buy that. And then we were able to go from there. So maybe it
Yeah.
worked the same way. It just one took a lot longer than the other.
You can also look at it. Your brother sort of breaking the ice on the subject could have
Yeah.
possibly made it a little bit easier for you too, right?
And looking back, it's like, oh yeah, no, that's absolutely the way it should have been.
Mm.
But it's also one of those things where, like, when you're the younger sibling, you're like, can I just have this one thing, please? Like, do you get to do everything first, or can I like just have this, please? No, okay, fine. So
Would you get all the hand-me-down clothing and shit too?
right? Yeah.
You know what? Christian made a valid point when we were talking about angry atheists here.
Mm.
He says, "You need to stop calling angry atheism a phase." In my opinion, you know what though? Most of them, when they first get out, are angry.
Hmm.
And many of them, I would say most of them, end up out of that phase or out of that state, if you want to call it something else. But it's a valid thing. Like, it's a thing for real.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's the thing is, I see where he's coming from, where it might be perceived as us calling it just a phase. But for me, it was a phase in my life. Like, it was a place of personal reckoning that I was able to grow from. Whereas for some people, I don't think it is a phase. I think it's, like you
They
said,
just
a
always stay
very,
angry.
yeah, a really rational reaction, especially for people that grew up like more fundy than I did. And then
Mhm.
you finally start thinking for yourself, or you finally get the opportunity to break out of it. Yeah, be mad. Be friggin'
Yep.
mad. That's okay. I
Yeah. Oh
fully
yeah.
support you in your anger.
Yeah.
I just know that for me, if I did not move away from that, it would have become destructive for me. So yeah, like I probably phrased that inartfully, and I thank you, Christian, for pointing that out.
Well, yeah. I mean, like I said, most people end up out of that, and realizing that it's kind of a waste of time.
Hmm.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
could. Yeah, to me, it is a little bit semantics, but
but
there
if
are
you,
lots that stay in it too,
mhm,
and
but
that's
and also it's
what's me.
important for you to call it out, because if it hit
Yeah,
you that way, it's very likely someone else will hear it that way. And if I look back at myself a couple of years ago and I heard somebody kind of flippantly say, "Oh, my angry atheist phase," that probably would have pissed me off and probably not been the greatest way for somebody to approach me at the time. I think it's a valid criticism.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I do hope for most people that that anger is something that you can eventually put to bed.
sure.
But if it's something that's driving you, if it's something that you're able to harness and turn creative, then by all means, like, again, there are lots of people out there, and people who have played a very important role in my life, either like parasocially through the internet, or by being people that I encountered at different points, who were angry, and they were angry with a purpose. And you know what, they were in a way unforgiving, and that's not for me to say whether it's right or wrong. Like, that's absolutely a valid place to be.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
Hmm.
Um, let me a quick scroll here, 'cause sometimes I miss them. Uh,
Mm.
yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Mikey, and like that's definitely how I felt. And yeah, Abram, I see that too. But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely the idea of being agitated, or like at a molecular level, to the point where you can be molded into something useful. That heat and pressure of that situation. Yeah, absolutely. So, for some people, it might be useful to stay there for a long time. For me, it would have become destructive. Um, because I would not be able to have the conversations that I want to have if I
Mhm.
approached it with that like knee jerk anger or frustration. Um, and that's a lot of it for me now is, um, like the kind of the paradigm. I sort of have like the scale of Tracy Harris to Matt Dillahunty still in my head, where like Tracy would very calmly walk you through like her background and her history, and like talk about things, but talk about them in a little bit of a removed way. And every once in a while, something would get under her skin, and she like would go off. But for the most part, it was, this was my experience, and for me, that was very real and very painful. Versus Matt going, "I was going to be a fucking preacher," and like, I needed both of those voices, but at the same time, like, we need both of those sides of that sort of uh, spectrum, and everything in between, because you never know what somebody needs to hear wherever they're at in the moment.
Yep. Sure. Yeah, and you're
Mhm.
entitled to do exactly that, Christian, if that's what you want to do. And it leads to the dark side.
I feel like I should just watch the chat at this point. I feel like they're actually more entertaining than anything else I'm going to say for the rest of the night.
Oh, I don't know about that. This has been a great conversation so far.
Yeah, but there are so many smart people in the chat. I love it.
Yeah, this is true. Most of them
Yeah.
are smarter than me by a long shot. But,
Right?
Notice me, senpai? What the hell, Mikey? Speaking of the dark side, I watched the first 4 seasons of the Clone Wars back in the day when it first aired, and I never watched anything past that. So I decided to rewatch them all, and I made it all the way through season 7. And the last 5 episodes of season 7 were pretty fucking amazing, actually.
Nice.
Except they started out by saying, "Oh yeah, well yeah, Darth Sidious was killed," and I'm like, "Wait, we didn't get to see that in the show. What the fuck's going on here?"
Great, cool. This thing happened
Just all
off
of a sudden he was
screen.
dead.
Great.
Right? So I was like, "What the fuck is going on here?" And
And
then I finished that series. Oh yeah, it's a great series. It's a great series. The animation's fantastic, but it gets even better towards the end. And now I'm watching the Rebels, Star Wars Rebels, which I really like, actually.
I'm cool. So behind. Like, I'm the worst nerd on the planet. I'm so far behind on all of like my Star Wars everything. People will bring something up and I'm like, "Oh, I need to watch that." And they're like, "It came out like 7 years ago, right?" I'm like, yeah, I do. Yeah, just no spoilers, okay?
Yeah.
Come on, man. Come on, man.
And recently I ordered the Mandalorian helmet, right? At least I thought it was going to be a helmet. And I picked it up today thinking, all right, I got to have my Mandalorian helmet, and it's this cheap-ass rubber piece of shit.
Oh, come on.
Right? And the way they make it looks like it's solid and metal, right? But no, it's this crappy fucking... So I said, all right, fuck you guys. I'm not, like, no wonder it was only $60. But so I looked online, like Etsy and all that shit, and I found one for $250 that's actually like fiberglass, and it's real. It's got padding inside, and I'm like, buying that one. Yep. So I can fuck this one.
Nice.
And the stream blasphemer. What the
hell? So yeah, no, that like always just go straight to the unlicensed Etsy products. By the way, like you're always gonna get way better for your money.
Well, I looked at a metal one, and they want like $550 for that, and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I could make one for a third of that price.
Right. I mean, fair. That's fair, Mikey. I used to have nerd cred, and then the world caught up to me, and I got complacent, and now it's just I'm not a nerd anymore. I guess I'm just a regular boring dude.
No, yeah, you are. You're a nerd still. It's okay.
Okay, good.
If you know when I reference the Clone Wars or Star Wars Rebels and you know what they are, you're still a nerd.
Yeah.
But what's this? What X is saying? Small head. What does that say? Check your small head privilege, yo.
Mikey, theater nerd. I grew up doing shows. I'm like an old book musical nerd. And I again, more recent years, I've just had other things going on. But I used to do shows when I was in high school. I would fly to New York to do summer stock, and then, like I said, I worked professionally for years and years and years. I ran a theater company for 5 years. Big time theater nerd.
All right, Christian, you're no longer allowed in my chat. Friends, really? I set my mom up with Netflix this weekend. I was over there before I got sick, and they're like asking you pick 3 shows that you kind of like, and she's going through all these. We're looking at them, and she's totally not technologically smart, like at all. So I'm like, well, think of a movie you quite like. And she goes, A Star is Born. I go, what, the new one? She goes, no, the original one. It's like, she's like, likes all the older stuff. And then she picked Friends as one. She goes, I thought Friends was a cute show. Cute show, Mom? Okay, sure. All right. So I picked that, and I picked a couple other ones just at random. I'm like, well, if you like Friends, you probably like Schitt's Creek and blah, 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 and all these other shows that are comedies and stuff. Right. And she was all happy because now she can scroll through all the movies and pick something that she wants to watch. So I made my mom happy.
as a former Netflix customer service representative, thank you for
Mhm.
doing that. Because the number of times I got little old ladies, like 80, 90 years old, who are like, well, my son, he bought this for me, and it says that I need an email address. Now, where do I get that? And it's like, oh, no.
Yeah.
Man, oh, man. Oh, yeah. And then
Yeah.
that pick 3 titles, you like, well, I haven't seen any of these yet. How do I know which one I'd like? Man, just pick 3 of them. It doesn't matter. Well, I don't want to choose wrong. It's like, okay,
You can't.
this is going to
That's
be
the thing.
45 minutes, huh? Yeah. Do they have breakfast at Tiffany's on here? Probably not on that screen, ma'am.
They're probably still talking about the mask and stuff like that, right? He's right.
Yeah, I'm assuming that was about the helmet.
It's like what was that? So I Married an Axe Murderer with Mike Myers. He's got a huge head, a giant cranium. It's like, what did you say? It's like an orange on a toothpick. Hey, you, bow down. Oh, look, he's going to go upstairs now and cry in his great huge pillow.
Oh, I need to go back and watch that movie. I haven't seen that since they used to broadcast it on Comedy Central. Like, they would show like the same 8 movies like every week.
Yeah.
And that was one of them.
Just when they start playing "If You Think I'm Sexy" by Rod Stewart on the bagpipes, it's totally out of key. And then the guy passes out and they're like, "Oh, pipe her down."
That's a real thing, by the way. That is a real thing. I've seen some bagpipers like fall out.
Oh yeah, they're out of breath. And they just they wind themselves, and all the oxygen in their brain just disappears.
Yeah, for a short time, I worked at a bed and breakfast that was Scottish themed, and during we did like a big 7-course meal for the dinner services. On Friday and Saturday nights, we had a poetry reading and a bagpiper come in. And one night they had like a substitute bagpiper. He wasn't our normal guy, and he passed out in the middle of the dining room, like while he was doing the pre-show or the pre-service, like playing for one of the dining rooms. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. It was like me and this like 90-pound waitress trying to like get him up and get him out. It's like, come on, man, you're gonna be fine. There we go.
Mikey's on it. That's what it was. Okay, hit down in front. That's what it was. It's a really funny movie, though.
Mm-hmm.
And he plays like a bunch of roles in that movie too.
Yeah,
kind of like he does in most of his movies.
I was gonna say, like, if you're gonna have somebody do it, that's the guy.
Oh yeah, he's good. He's funny. And then they do that sketch on Saturday Night Live. If it's not Scottish, it's crap. The shot that he runs. It's a great scene. Well, sir, you know what we could do? We could wrap this up early and just get into an after party, and Jonathan can join us. And of course,
cool.
If he wants to, yeah. I
mean, I don't know. I'm not sure about that guy.
Yeah, he's kind of he's sketchy. That guy, you know, as they say in the.
He keeps wanting to talk to me about chick tracks. I'm not sure.
Man, one of those scared the fuck out of me when I was a kid.
Yeah.
One that had the lining of the planets in it, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? And then all the world's going to come to an end.
Yeah.
And it's like, fuck.
Looking back on that, I'm like, we gave these to children?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because I remember the one about D&D, which of course messed with me because I've been playing D&D since I was a kid. There was one that they put out about like Dungeons and Dragons and like how like because there is a pantheon of gods and the whole thing, and just so bad, and like the visions of hell in it, and you're just like, oh my god, like we were giving these to 8-year-olds. This is terrible.
Yeah, and those things they're just ludicrously stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them really have the intention to scare the shit out of kids.
Mm-hmm. That was
let's get them to Jesus by making them shit themselves.
Right. Oh, and that was one of the things, like, because like in the Southern Baptist community, if you're a boy and you're between like I think 6 and 12, they have their own specific youth group thing that's sort of like Boy Scouts for Jesus. Essentially, it's called RAs, Royal Ambassadors, and that was like they make you do service projects for the community, but they're all like Christian themed. And that was our thing for like Halloween's, was to like go out and like hand out chick tracts to the other kids. And like it would always be one of those things where the next day in school you're like, why is everybody looking at me weird? And they're like, 'cause you gave me that fucked up book. It's like, oh, whoops, sorry.
Jonathan says he's going to provide a link to the D&D one so I can check it out. Thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah.
An original runs like 70. Wait, what?
It's got to be from like ironic collectors, right?
I should have kept them. I had a little stack of them. One was about somebody's neighbor was gay, and then there was the one with the lining of the planets, and then there was the one with drag racing, I think, or something, and how drag racing was evil. And there's a bunch of different ones that I have.
Yeah.
Because this kid who was staying with my best friend's parents weren't rich, so they used to have kids. I guess they would do the like the foster kids, and they'd make money doing that. And one of the kids that stayed there, nice guy, really cool, kind of a badass in a sense, but he was also religious, so he carried all these chick tracts around with him all the time. You know, I remember them being about yay big, and they had the two color covers, like half it was either blue or green or red or yellow or whatever, and a little picture, and that he gave me. And to me, they were just little comic books that had a message, right? But some of them scared the poop out of me, like seriously.
Yeah, and it would come out of nowhere. Like the first panel, you'd be like, oh, it's a story about like a little girl learning her lesson. And by the end of it, you're like, oh my God, she killed herself and went to hell? What's going on here?
Yeah. And that's right. The other one, I think I actually had that one with the girl that committed suicide, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just brutal.
Good times.
But
good, wholesome family entertainment right there.
Yeah, exactly. I'm actually, speaking of wholesome family entertainment, although it probably wouldn't be thought of as wholesome family entertainment by many, but I'm listening to Neil Gaiman's The Sandman. I read it years and years ago, and they have it on Audible, and it's such a good story. Yes. And Neil Gaiman's the narrator, and then they got all these people doing the voices, right, for the different characters.
Oh, that's
and it's
awesome.
fucking fantastic. Yeah.
Oh my God. All right, so I'll add that to my list of things that I need to go look up after this.
It's
cool.
It's great. It's great.
God, I miss those.
Yeah.
I had a friend that had like the anthology of them, and he let me borrow it. It changed my life. I was like, this is amazing. And yeah,
that one and American Gods are probably my favorite by him.
And
then they did the show, which was awesome, by the way.
Yeah,
really good.
I enjoyed the show. And I'm not one for like adaptations and that sort of thing, like book to film or book to TV show adaptations usually kind of bug me because I'm such a purist. I'm like, that's not what happened in the books.
Yeah, I know, right?
You know what I mean?
Walking Dead, right?
Right.
Carol doesn't exist. What the fuck is this shit?
Exactly.
But you grow to like the character, regardless.
Right? Yeah. Like strangely, I've become more tolerant as the years have gone. It's like I don't need the world to line up with a book. Wonder how that happened. Huh.
Well, you know what? You know that it's for entertainment value, so
right.
You stop being such a nitpicker.
Right.
Oh, there goes the nonprofits group. Oh yeah, that's the other announcement I forgot to
make. There you go.
And also the patrons. Oh, thanking my patrons all the time now. By the way, do you have a Patreon?
I do not. I have not started like a Patreon or anything like that. So you guys, you get me for free. Just come hang out.
Well, there you go. Profits, go subscribe. Mikey's all over the shit tonight. There you go. Yeah, every little bit helps to grow the show, and that's where all the money goes. Well, actually, most of it goes to Patreon does this automatically. They take it out and pay the people that I support, and then whatever little bit's left goes into my account. So I do get a little bit out of it, and that always goes into my Amazon stuff that I use to buy for the show and shit like that. So all the money is going towards the show. Oh, okay. X, you gonna do it? Oh, I hope we get to do episodes together, brother, because I'm gonna be a permanent host with that show. So
that's awesome.
Oh, I can't wait if X is gonna be doing that. That's gonna be a lot of fun. You gotta come in the after party, X.
Yeah, come on in.
We can shoot the shit. Yeah, and you can tell Rags here about the Utah Outcast show. Utah Outcast, right there.
Man, I need merch now.
Yeah, I still haven't done mine either, and it's one of the things I want to talk with Mikey about and see what we should come up with. And I keep saying, "Hey, dude, we got to talk," and then we never end up doing that because I get busy, he gets busy, and eventually it'll happen.
Yeah.
But, it'll happen, and we'll shoot the shit and come up with some ideas and stuff like that for this show and for True North Talk, which is the other show you guys go and check out once we get it going in the new year. We'll be doing just like they do on like Atheist Experience, but we're not going to limit ourselves to just having theists call in. We'll talk to atheists, theists, fucking whatever. We'll talk to you about if you have a weird belief. Let's talk about it. Call us and we'll shoot the shit and see if it's something that's worthwhile following. And Irish Tweet says we would love to go on more shows as long as Jarton's not there. Is that what I'm getting out of that? I could see between the lines there. Swede. They have this funny little, because Swede's Norwegian, he's Swedish. Little whatever the Nord Swede thing going on. I don't know what the fuck you call it.
So I'm American, so it's all vaguely Europe to me. It's fine.
Exactly. It's like fighting in the fjord. I do a pretty good Swedish chef too, by the way.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, damn it. Yeah, it's the non-profits thing. It's Johnny Angel. The guy's a chatterbox and a half, man. And if he watches this, oh no, it was Christy.
Mikey.
Christy Santiago is also going to be joining us on the non-profits too. See, Johnny's looking for all different people that he can mix as hosts for the show. And it's basically the same format as the original with Jeff D and Dennis LeBay and Russell Glassers. Like they do the mailbag thing, they do the funny piece of news, they do the fucked up piece of news, and we just talk about it, make fun of something or whatever. And it's a lot of fun. And awesome. Yeah, I already did one episode that aired. No, there's a coin. It's essentially one icicle. Is that supposed to be icicle? Arguing with
I think that the Norway Sweden thing. One icicle arguing. One icicle.
Yes. I have a weird belief that capitalism isn't good.
Ooh, hot take.
That's what he's all about, that stuff. That's what he does on his show. Anyway. All right, well, Rags Man, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
This is a pleasure.
Yeah, this has kind of been surreal. I'm like, wait, I'm actually on the show now. This is cool.
It's in the books,
right?
Well, it's on the screen. That's maybe, I don't know.
Something.
Whichever works better. Yeah, you're officially part of my catalog now, sir.
I love it. It's a crowning achievement. I can die happy.
Well, let's not get carried away now. I'm just some poor ass, cheap ass Canadian guy up here doing what he can to make the world a little bit better by having people share their stories of finding their way out of fallacious nonsense. But anyways, yeah, let's not get too harsh there, Neil. Anyway, so
I'll be the nice one. You can be mean. It's fine.
That's what Randolph and I are going to do for the college show. It's going to be like good cop, bad cop. Of course,
yeah.
Bad cop. And Randolph will be the good cop, although it seems to be reversing these days. Randolph's the one getting all the shit these days, and I'm the one that's like, you're such a nice guy, right? So it's like, Irish Tweet says, you've made it. All right, everyone, thank you guys for hanging out with us. I hope you guys had as much fun as we did. Is Neil the collector? I could be. Depends, I guess. Do I have to do I have to crack some skulls? Oh, fuck, I can't even crack my knuckles. Anyway. All right, guys, we are going to do an after party. If you're interested in joining us, give me a message on Twitter or Facebook if you're not on Twitter, and I will send you a link if there's room and allow you guys to come on in. So, Mikey, pop some eyes. That's another story I'll tell you about another time. Oh, geez, here we go. JD the plumber again.
Come on, JD. We're doing something, man.
Yeah, fuck it. Well, he has no idea. That's okay.
But your plumber doesn't know about your show? Come on, man.
Nope. He has no idea about my show. My roommate set it all up, so I don't know why the fuck he's texting me. Anyway. All right. So just before we go, thank you once again to all my patrons. You guys are the ones that keep the show going and making it improve. And don't forget to check out my guest Ragabash Dabbler's links below if you want to check out his YouTube channel and Twitter, and you can follow him there. And also, don't forget to sub to the True North Talk channel, which will be up and running in the new year. And like X and myself and the wonderful Christy Santiago, we are all now co-hosts or hosts of the new nonprofit show that is being rebooted on the ACA show network. So definitely go and check that out. One of my episodes is already up there with Puck and Martin and Jenna, not Jenna Belk, Jenna Miu, I think is her name. Lovely, lovely gal. What am I? What is this? The 20s? Hello, my baby. Hello, my darling. But until then, guys, with the whole COVID-19 thing going on, remember to be safe, or be well and be safe, and above all, be kind. And as I always say at the end of the interviews, like the late, great Christopher Hitchens once said, it's called faith because it's not knowledge. And we'll see you guys next time.